Hey everyone, can you tell I'm excited? I'm excited because I get to talk about cycling today because I have a serious cycling problem. And I hope you do too. And if you do, this episode is for you, you and me. We're gonna have this conversation right now. We're gonna talk about what it means to train for an early season cycling camp. Little backstory. I've been using training camps, cycling camps, or even trips to races as micro doses of volume across my entire season that allows me to build fitness and create incredible strength by the time the race day or my big event comes. I've taken advantage of the opportunity that I have as a coach, as a business owner, as someone who's on site to sort of help athletes and maybe even run events or training camps as an opportunity for me to catapult my fitness. And you can follow those same path. Now, we, of course, run training camps inside Endurance Nation. You can find those on endurancenation.us or our sister company, mile18inc.com. That's mile18inc.com, where you can find our camps this year in both Mallorca and Tuscany. But every year, people will sign up for a camp, super excited, and I'm super excited too. Then they say, oh my God, what do I need to do to train? And most of the time, I give a little bit of general guidance. But I thought today I'd break it down into 4 specific components for you that I think will be really helpful. And macro-wise, we have to think about the big picture. This training camp is meant to be fun. It's also meant to be a bridge between where you are now and where you want to be. And if we do it right, you build a lot of great fitness. You actually get fitter over the course of the camp. You're able to do the riding that you want to do. You're able to still have fun, recover from it, and then get back to your season. There's a couple of key components in there that are really important. Number one, that you're actually able to handle the training load at camp. Number two, that you give your space the opportunity to grow over the course of camp riding, right? So we get fitter as we go. You kind of see this in the tour as athletes will ride into the tour and get fitter over the course of the tour. They actually show up a little, actually intentionally undertrained because they have to be able to absorb that whole load. And you have to do the same, even if it's on a condensed version for a training camp that's maybe 5 or 7 days long, depending on where you go. Okay. And then last but not least, you have to be able to recover from it. No camp is good if it destroys your season. And I just last year did that to myself, where I did a great block inside Mallorca, did over 600 miles, I think, in 6 days, and then went right to Tenerife and really struggled there to do the Volta Alpe day, which was crazy hard, and I was broken and just destroyed. And it was one of the most unhappy bike rides of my year. And I was able to, with a good solid month of rest, recover and recharge for the end of my season, doing great at Steamboat and Leadville. But it was a close call. And so you don't want to be like Coach Patrick in those examples. But important for you to know that the training camps actually still set the stage, although I had to really pull out the emergency switch to save myself. So what are these 4 examples, 4 ideas, 4 strategies that I want you to take into account when you're training for an early season camp? Well, first, remember, you don't have to be going to a camp to employ these. These are just great strategies for you to use to train towards a focused week of cycling. We call those focus weeks inside Endurance Station. Where you're going to really concentrate on a single sport and really elevate your fitness and skill set inside that area. Okay. Number 1. Your first goal should be to build to the daily ride frequency. So if you're going to a camp that's got 5 or 6 days of riding in a week, we want to build you up to that frequency. People say, what about the volume? What about the volumes and intensity? Don't worry about all that stuff. Just get to the frequency. Just get used to getting up the next day and putting those shorts on again and getting back and riding, right? You may also put a top on or socks. Okay, fine. That's fine. Maybe we're a little different than each other in terms of how our setup works, but you get the drill, right? We want you to make sure that you're getting into the habit of doing those back-to-back rides. Because even early season, if you're doing 3 rides or 4 rides a week, there's still plenty of rest between those sessions. And training camp requires you to kind of be on a cadence with the ride. So don't start tomorrow, but we'll look over the coming weeks heading into your camp and say, hey, I need to get from where I am, say 3 rides a week, to be able to do 6 rides in a given week. How can I do it? Maybe next week you do 4, then you do 5, you go back to 4, then you'll try 6. You can mix it up, whatever it is. But that should be a key goal for you, is getting to that daily ride frequency. That's level 1. Okay. Second level for you, adding 2 days of core and flexibility to your program. Moving the numbers up on the time dial or the intensity dial, the duration dial or the elevation dial, whatever those dials, or multiple dials, depending which ones you're turning, will bring additional stress on your body. Now, normally, as you move into warmer weather, you spend more time outside, and the weather gets really nice and you really want to be outside. There's a gradual transition that happens over the course of your season that allows your body to adapt to the stress of being outside. Well, you're kind of getting on a plane, even though it's freezing cold here, and going somewhere and riding nice right away. And you'll be excited. You'll be overjoyed and probably not display all of the restraint you might or should really do, which is fine. That's what training camps are for. Push your limits, have fun, be smart, right? But that said, how do we offset some of that friction between now, here, and there? Awesome. we add the core and flexibility work into your schedule. Just 2 days. I recommend 15 minutes of each. You don't have to do a lot because odds are you're probably not doing a lot right now. So you'll feel it pretty quickly. Recommend you start off with the core and do things that focus not only on your abs, etc., but also your lower back. And there's great exercises you can do with bands, balls. You can even do it with dumbbells or kettlebells if you have them. But basic core strengthening work really important. And then cool down from that session with some flexibility work. Again, you just get out your yoga mat, get to it. Again, there's apps and resources for this. We have both, the core and the flexibility guidance here inside Endurance Nation. But just add these to your schedule. If you can put it on Mondays, Fridays in the winter, generally works for us, as those are our lighter days, mapping out the difference between what we do during the week with our intervals and what we do on the weekend with our endurance. But you can put those where you want, but just make sure you're getting in 2 of those days. It doesn't sound like much, but between now and your camp, 2 days a week, 8 weeks, 16 sessions, that's actually a pretty good amount of time for you to get ready. And it's also giving you the fluency to do this on your own. And you can bring this fluency with this core and strength work to camp with you and do it when no one's looking, right? Which is like, do your core and flexibility. You can do your core in the morning before you ride and do your flexibility after, but it's going to help activate those muscles and help you process the work that you're putting into your body. It's very important. So it becomes as much of a habit as it is a resource for you to make you more resilient. Okay. Number 3, let's build that long ride up. You're going to want to ride when you get there. Like, let's face it, if you're in Tuscany or you're in Mallorca or Girona or wherever you may be, it's a long ride. You're going to want to do it. Like, even though you may not have the chops right now, you're going to want to do it. So do yourself a favor and get yourself up to a 3-hour ride. Now, for some people, that's easier said than done. If you've got a whole Zwift setup like myself with the mega screen TV and the fans and the food and all that stuff, it's not that hard to go from 60 to 180 minutes and get inside that space. But for those of you who really struggle, there's a couple of things to think about. One, use food as a reward or drink. Like break out gummy candy in the last hour. Like, hey, it's my reward. I get a gummy every 10 minutes, a Swedish fish every 10 minutes. I don't care. Give yourself a can of Coke at the 2-hour mark to finish that last hour. Put some sugar inside the system. That's sort of easy tricks. Some people like to just dial it in zone 2 and put on a movie, maybe watch a show that they really like. That's another way to get yourself over the hump. Or, start off the ride early and then meet other people later. We use Discord inside Endurance Nation, so you could always meet someone a little bit later on the channels and talk to them and pass the time a little more rapidly. For those of you who don't have that kind of setup and maybe are at a gym, you can kind of hopscotch around the gym, try not to, break anybody's time on a device, but really just say, hey, maybe I'll do 45 minutes on the bike, and then I'll do 45 minutes on the treadmill, and then I'll do some Stairmaster, and then I'll do some elliptical and come back. Just trying to put in 3 hours of consistent work in a tight block will make a big difference. Obviously, if you can do it cycling, the more specific you can be, the better it'll be. But we're really just trying to get you over the hump and actually remind you of a couple key things in terms of pacing, in terms of your body, your overall flexibility, nutrition becomes really important, and then also recovery. By putting this session into your plan, it's not so much about, am I strong? Are my numbers great for 3 hours? It's more, hey, am I doing all the things I need to do? Because you can fake the nutrition in an hour-long workout indoors. Can't fake it for 3 hours. You're going to know there's a gap, and you can actually start to address it, because why would you want to do that to yourself again? So build yourself up to a 3-hour ride. And if you can get that done, say every third or maybe even every other week, depending, you'll be in a great place heading into your camp to handle it. Okay. And then last but not least, the hour of power. This is my go-to favorite secret. I love to climb. I am no good at climbing. I'm too big to really be a good climber, but that doesn't mean I don't love it. Now, don't get me wrong. Like the super steep climbs where everyone's attacking, I'm not a fan of those. But climbing in and of itself is just an awesome, like, Zen zone place to be. It's you against the road. You're dialed in. There's not a lot of changes. Love that. I'm not so good with the reflexes. And it's an opportunity just to kind of push yourself, right? And I find that as you get into climbing, as with you get into any activity, I start to notice nuances, changes in the pitches, the gradient, the terrain. You can actually see the stuff around you instead of just zooming on by it, right? It's just a different perspective altogether. So I've grown to love climbing. But climbing is not fun in the early season if you're not ready for it. So my go-to is the hour of power. I use the Alpe Zwift because I'm a Zwift fanatic. It takes me about an hour to climb from the bottom to the top. And so what I'll do is I'll, ride around and warm up and get to the bottom of that. And then I just climb that thing using the elevation of the Alpe Zwift to basically maintain stress on the pedals and the system. And then I climb that thing nice and steady. And I'll mix the cadence up. Sometimes I'll be at like 60 RPMs and standing. Other times I'm at 90 RPMs, etc. The idea being that I'm kind of sitting in that sweet spot of endurance, just above 75%. So just upper zone 2 into low zone 3 in that space. So I can hold that power for an hour, but it's good. And sometimes early in the season, I got to break it up 4x15s or 3x20s. I kind of back off a little bit in terms of time. But that hour of power becomes not only a confidence builder, but prepares you. And I know, because I've been going to Mallorca for 6 years now, you're number 7 coming up. is that being able to sit on those numbers for a steady period of time is not just a fitness thing, it's a mental toughness thing. And you can start to sharpen that saw now, even though you're indoors, as a great resource for you. Now, those of you who don't have an indoor setup, you have to get one. Just get it. If you're a cyclist, you love to ride, you should have one. You deserve it. And besides, you're going to spend a ton of time on that and get really strong. You can have a lot of fun along the way. So those are my 4 tips for you to remind you. Get the daily ride frequency up. Let's get the 2 days of core flexibility built in. Let's get up to that long ride of 3 hours every third week or every other week, depending on the proximity of your camp and your goals. And last but not least, the hour of power. If you dare do it, head over to Alpe Zwift, get in that hour-long session just above the top of zone 2, below the middle point of zone 3. Just sit on that number, build your familiarity with it and that level of work. You'll be glad you did when you get to paradise and you're going out to ride. You'll have all the health and fitness, everything you need to go out and have fun. Just enough fun, not too much fun. Got a couple days here. Give yourself time. You still want to be able to do stuff later in the day and go out and hang out and just be a good human being and enjoy this incredible opportunity to be abroad. But otherwise, I hope you do enjoy your camp. And if you do go to a camp, we'd love to hear about it. Tell us what you think. If you're interested in learning more about our training camps, again, enduranceStation.us/camps or Mile 18 Inc. That's mile18inc.com. where you can find our camps and you can come and join us. We still have spots available for both camps this year. Thanks for tuning in. I wish you the best luck this season with your cycling, and I hope that early season training camp pays off. I kind of have a feeling that it will.